All right, ladies and gentlemen, how y'all doing? Another good Monday evening, doing our thing here, War Media, and got a good friend and a couple good friends with me. One new and one not so new. Drew is back on the scene after a week off, and we'll catch up with him in a minute. But as you can see up in the corner next to me is Mr. Alex Shapiro of a new colleague of mine with NBC Sports Chicago. You see, he's been there long enough to get the swag, so he's got the sweater on, so he can always rep corporately. I'll see how long it takes for me to get one of those, but
you'll get some
right now
swag
I'm
before
just
too long. We gotta get you a backpack. We gotta get you the water bottle's nice. Don't worry, we'll get you some stuff.
well, yeah. I got to get into the damn office first, man. I haven't even been in the office. I've worked a month and a half. I ain't been in the office yet, but that's the world we live in. So, but I'm just like I said, I'm just glad to have a job. I'm just glad to have a job that allows me to get a haircut. As Drew was
And
able
it's a
to.
good looking haircut too. That's a good
Thank
looking
you.
haircut.
Thank you. Yeah, shout out to my guy Sean on 55th, man. He hooked me up, and I'm just glad to survive the holiday. I'm sure you guys had a good holiday as well. Drew, I know on the text over the weekend, you said you were down in Marion, man. You made the trip all the way to Southern Illinois.
Yeah, so my sister, she graduated from SIU Carbondale like 95 and never came back. So she's been down in Marion since then. And ever since she's had her son and her daughter, we've kind of made trips there when we can for Thanksgiving. So yeah, man, my son and I, me and my 6-year-old son, we took the drive down there and back, man. I know I'm getting old because those drives, man, like it hurts. It physically hurts to sit in the car for 4.5 hours straight.
Ain't like doing it when you're 19, man.
Nah, it's not, man. It's not. I really need to. I need to get into some more stretching.
Critical. Yo, as a 30-plus-year-old, stretching critical.
Yeah.
Critical. Change my life. I'm not even kidding.
And I
hope
you're sitting in a car too that allows you to have some room with, you pretty tall dude, man.
Yeah, so I was in a Jeep Patriot. I mean, it's not, it's not a Prius, but it's not, I don't know. I wasn't stretched out probably to the maximum capacity, but it was all right, man. It's just my back and my legs get tight and knees are screaming by the end of it. I just dying to get out of the car and stand up. So, but to your point, Alex, yeah, stretching is, oh my God. You have to do it, man. At least a couple times a week, man, if anything.
Alex, man, how about your holiday, man? You steady pumping out Bears content. We're gonna talk to you about the Bears in a minute here, but I talked to you on the holiday because I worked on the holiday.
That's true. We were collaborating, man, and we were doing our best Bears impression collaborating on our NBC Sports Chicago content. So yeah, I covered the team. Fortunate enough to cover the team, and also was able to catch about the last hour, 45 minutes of my family's dinner. So that was really nice. Drove out to the burbs. They had a plate of food waiting for me. So that was really nice. And I guess I got to cover my Bears and eat my turkey too. It was like a really lame joke about having my cake and eating it too. But that's what it was.
Yeah.
I got to work. I got to eat dinner. It was nice.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what type of blessing the Bears are on Thanksgiving, but I was running errands while the game was on. So I mostly listened to the game on radio. And because I had to get back home. I just got back home in time to start work because I had to start at 2. And that was it was like the last half hour of the game. Mm-hmm. I saw that. So I saw the end of it. And, I was prepared to see them lose, but then they had that final drive and made got the kick and everything. And, it's, it's the Bears are the Bears. And I'm trying to think of that saying, thank heaven for small miracles or something like that. But that's pretty much where the Bears are as far
thank
as
heaven for Cairo Santos.
Yeah, pretty much. That's because he's won a couple games for the Bears, And
Drew's got it.
What you say?
Drew's got it right. Thank goodness for the Detroit Lions. Is really
right.
where it's at.
Yeah. There before the grace of God goes the Bears. We look at the Lions and how sorry they are and how they always provide a little bit of perspective when it comes to our nagging of the Bears. But the last week this past week has been wild. You look at the last 7 days. It starts with this report dropping out of the sky from Mark Conkle, a guy who has he has a reputation on both sides of the fence here in Chicago in journalism. He's a Pulitzer Prize guy, but he's working at Patch now. So you kind of take both sides of anyway. He drops this report and says that Nagy is out the door. Essentially, he's going to be fired on Friday this week after the game, Friday, whatever the timeline is going to be. Mm-hmm. That it eventually that becomes disputed by the Bears. Nagy comes out, says it ain't true. George McCaskey, but in your opinion, you're a guy who covers the team every day. You're at House Hall every day. Starting with that, I want to get someone on this week who both covers the Bears and is in tune with the machinations there and stuff. So I'm glad to have you on just for that. But and also just being a reporter, period. What was your take on how that all played out? And it was surprising to me that a story like that would have got completely past the Bears media in general. A lot of great reporters in the Bears press. Local press, and for nobody to have got that who regularly covers the team and fit to go to Concourse, as good a reporter as he may be, it just was surprising to me. But in your opinion, just starting off, what was your take on how that all developed, and do you think that at a certain point the Bears might have been leaning towards making that decision on Nagy this past week, or were they or was he just BS'd and just sort of played?
Sure. So I'll start with this. When I read the report, it was obviously like, whoa, this is something. Who is this guy? Right? And then you look into him, and as you mentioned, one of the first things you see is he's a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter. So I go, well, I don't have any reason not to believe this report, even though a lot of the details were fishy. The fact that they would tell Matt Nagy on Monday that he's going to be fired on Friday, but he's got to coach one extra game, that just seemed weird. Yeah. So I'm trying to piece it all together, and not piece it together really, but work through it and see, does this make sense? And I think what I landed on is it feels like where there's smoke, there's fire. I talked about this with Cap on The Rush. I don't know if you guys watched The Rush. That day, we talked about it. That seemed something like the truth might be somewhere in the middle. And I totally would believe if the Bears had discussed firing Matt Nagy, and if they had lost that game, then maybe he's out of there. But it didn't seem to make sense, really, to tell a coach, hey, by the way, you're fired, but you've got to coach one more game. That just, to me, that detail stuck out. So I was kind of like, this is fishy, but it also might be based in some sort of reality. And Conkle came out and essentially said, was I bamboozled? Did they change their minds? I don't know what happened, but he stood by his initial report. And what I would imagine, if we're now taking the step backwards, and this is something that now the Bears players have confirmed, right? They've talked about George McCaskey coming and talking to the team to refute it. When they refuted it, before we get too ahead of ourselves, I'll take the next step. When Matt Nagy refuted it, when Bill Lazor refuted it, and pretty much everybody in a row came up and denied it and essentially said it was ridiculous. That is when it seemed like they weren't talking like people who were like, oh yeah, our coach did just get fired, but we're going to keep the company line. You know, like you can kind of tell when they're talking like, ooh, yeah, maybe they're just saying these things because they can't say he has been fired. It seemed like they were genuinely dismissive of that stuff. So that also kind of rang true for me in a way, right? The fact that they were all, I mean, Bill Lazor, essentially, he told a story. He's like, yo, I've had reports break saying a coach was going to be fired and he ended up getting a 2-year extension. So I've been through this and this, that, and the other thing. All the players were like, the reports that Nagy's lost the locker room are not true. We are like, we're still together. We're with this guy. We believe in him. So all of that, hearing all of that and like in quick succession made it seem like, yeah, I don't think he actually has been told he's been fired. But again, I would believe that maybe George McCaskey said he's not going to be fired on Friday or on Monday, but we're not saying his job's safe. And obviously things got to turn around in a big way for him to be retained. And that is probably where I imagine, again, this is speculation. This is speculation, but that is where I would imagine things stand today. I would imagine that if Matt Nagy wants to keep his job, the Bears got to like probably win out and make the playoffs. Or play much, 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 much better than they are right now. I would wager, and again, this is speculation, I would wager, also based on what George McCaskey and Ryan Pace said at the beginning of the year, they needed to see progress, and progress was winning games. Where if the season ended today, I don't think Matt Nagy would be back. I don't think he would be back to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears if the season ended today. But there's 6 games left, and a lot can happen in 6 games. And talking about today now, the Bears today, that is a different locker room. Those are different players, different morale today after one win. Because now they're like, we beat the Cardinals. All of a sudden, everything's different. Right? They're 4-7, and yes, they are technically 1 game out of the playoffs, even though they're buried in 14th place, right? There's a lot of teams in that 4-7, 5-6 range, right? No matter what happens between the Washington football team and the Seahawks today, a 5-6 team is going to be the 7th seed. So I think they're like, we haven't been eliminated yet. Until we're eliminated.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
I say it's amazing how bunched up the NFC is. And, you know, you like you say, they're a team. It seems like they're a team that they strike. They take the cue of Nagy, and Nagy has this sort of can-do attitude about him that, you know, when you're doing good, it's great to see your coach have that attitude, but when you're sucking or playing mediocre, it's like, what are you so positive about, dude? It's like, you know, it's annoying. But like you say, they are a game out of the 7th seed. The 7th seed is doing. I was annoying some people earlier in text, you know, including our guy Ken Davis. Like, I was like, hey, you know, their game out, you know, I'm sure they're thinking up there in Hallis Hall, like, oh, you know, we got a chance. And nobody wants to think that, you know, everybody wants the rest of this season to be simply about building up Fields and looking towards the future. But I'm look, from what I read of this team and what I've known and following them, I think more people than we would like are up there thinking like, yeah, like you say, we beat the Cardinals. We got a chance to do something here. And you wrote a good piece today, of course, about, you know, them not playing not saying what if. It's available now on NBC Sports Chicago. And that's more in looking at the past games. And, you know, that's something that it's understandable if you're a football player or a coach, why you wouldn't look backwards. You got to stay looking forwards. As fans, we could do that, though. And when you look at games like the Pittsburgh game, the Baltimore game, the
49ers game in there.
That's the San Francisco game. Like, you win those 3 games, you know, you're better than 7th. You're square in the playoff race. And that seems to be to me, that's going to seem to be the most damning thing about Nagy's run here. All the could have beens and should have been scenarios, the close games that they lost, the games that that could have broken up these extra long losing streaks that they seem to get themselves in every year. And without those precipitous plunges throughout each year, they could have been a much better contender each year throughout his run than they have been. And instead of trying to back into the playoffs and have him sitting on this hot seat every year, but he just I don't know, for whatever reason they just haven't put it together in the way that we would want them to each year, and that's left him in this precarious position where, like you say, unless they win out, their job is on the line. I mean, his job is on the line, and unfortunately, their next two games are against the top two teams in the conference. So, we all, we cover the team. We wish the best for the team, but it'd be hard for me to see them beating Arizona and Green Bay in the next 2 weeks. But it didn't have to be this way. It just didn't. If you won, especially if you won simply those last two games prior to the Detroit game, it's a whole different situation.
They're sitting pretty. If they win those last two games, they're sitting pretty. Instead of it's almost best case scenario 5-8. Obviously, best case scenario is they win both games, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like the best case scenario is maybe they win one of those games. Maybe Kyler Murray is still hurt. Maybe Aaron Rodgers' toe thing gets worse, right? I mean, because it just seems like the way things are, winning both of those games seems like a tall order. But again, this is us. We're outsiders. And in that locker room, it is clear that they still believe. Tashawn Gibson had one of the press conferences that really, I thought, was the most telling, when he was like, I've been on a lot of bad teams. Played for the Browns. He was on the Texans when the Texans were actually pretty good. But he's like, I've seen some bad locker rooms. I've seen some clown shows. These are my words. I'm saying bad locker rooms. I'm saying clown shows. But he was like, I've been on bad teams, and I've seen when things get out of hand. And this is not that. The Bears are not that yet. I think they're frustrated more than anything. I think they're frustrated because they believe they are a much better team than they have shown up to this point. And they haven't. They've lost. So I think it's more frustration than anything. That's the sense I get.
It is. I mean, that's one of the things that I do admire about Nagy, is that he hasn't ever seemed to have lost the locker room. Even in these last 3 seasons when they've gone on 5+ game losing streaks, everybody still seems to be together. I do admire that about his leadership, I guess if you want to call it, if you want to associate that word with it. But still, it's just from afar, it just seems like a breakup is the best way to go about this. You got fire Nagy chants at what was his son's football game? Like, I mean, that's crazy, man. Like, I just think, Nagy needs to go his separate ways. The Bears need to find somebody. There needs to be just a restructuring in general that I don't know is going to ever happen. But it just feels like no matter what happens in these next six games, like, have we seen enough to this point to think that Nagy is the best man to get Justin Fields where we all believe he can be? Number one. Do we believe that Pace can put the guys in place that need to be around Justin Fields for Justin Fields to accomplish what it is we think he can do? And I just don't know that we have, there's enough reasonable doubt there for those two guys to maintain their positions with the team. And I don't know if maybe leadership is looking at that new rule with the NFL, where I think it is, if you are firing your coach or you tell the coach, he's going to be fired, that you can interview guys with the last 2 weeks of the season. I don't know if maybe they're looking into that, but something needs to happen. Somebody has to go. And I hate to say that because I don't want anybody to lose their job, but if the Bears are going to actually progress and get better and take steps to being a more respectable franchise and formidable team, changes need to be made.
Yeah, and Drew, you mentioned pace, and really we should in all of these conversations we should always, I think, mention pace because he did so much to get us into this situation as well. And but he's sort of allowed himself to just be this man in the shadows, and he's not nearly as dissected publicly as Nagy is. That's of course you talk about a coach versus a general manager. That's always going to be the case, but at the same time, so many of the issues that we know about this team they stem from the way it was built and the way that certain positions have been lacking in the way that they've been attended to via either the draft or free agency, and just it's pace. Like say, a lot can be diagnosed in regards to the way that Pace has built the team, and when we talk about what ails the Bears. And with that said, Alex, before we let you go, I want to get your opinion on just what do you think his standing may be in regards to all this? Could this be a complete, sweeping of the house if Nagy doesn't do enough to secure his position? Or, there's been talk too about maybe just a restructuring of the front office where Pace is not let go, but he's moved to another place, and Phillips has maybe moved, and you're dealing with the switching of nameplates at that point. But what do you think about the position that Pace is in, and what do you think he sort of deserves after his performance? Because it's been mostly inglorious. You date back to what happened with in 2017 with his decision at quarterback there, and what has led to the repercussions there for years, and now we what is like 2 of 7 years or whatever they made the playoffs in 2 of 7 years that he's been running the team. That's not a good record.
It's all fair criticism, but I like to remind folks what the Bears looked like when Ryan Pace took over. They were an embarrassment. I mean, that franchise was in shambles by the time Mark Trestman and Phil Emery were gone. He built it back up from practically nothing from the defense. And I mean, the criticism is fair in terms of positions he hasn't addressed properly. Offensive line has been glaring, although looks better with Larry Borum as a 5th-round draft pick. We don't know what Tevin Jenkins is yet. And then in the inside position has been okay. James Daniels, Cody Whitehair, Sam Mussafer. I don't think they're all pros, but they're certainly not losing you games, I don't think. Or you could look at his decision to roll with Kindle Vildor and Artie Burns and Desmond Trufant next to Jalen Johnson. That has not worked out. And that's fair criticism. But I mean, he deserves credit for rebuilding that defense into what was an elite defense under Vic Fangio for a little bit. He did make the trade to bring in Khalil Mack. The Robert Quinn signing looked awful last year. This year, Robert Quinn is playing like the guy they expected when they signed him to that huge contract. He has got the Pro Bowl locked up, in my opinion, and now it's like, is he going to be an all-pro player? He has drafted great guys like David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. It's another, young duo, both on their, both very young, and that running back room looks super solid. Darnell Mooney looks like a real player. He has contributed. He has not been an A-plus perfect GM. Nobody is. And the criticism is totally fair. But I think you do have to separate Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Now, again, like Ryan Pace got he hired John Fox. He hired Matt Nagy. Does he get that third coach? Same thing with the quarterbacks, right? He's getting a lot of chances. But I do believe he deserves some credit for the successes that he's had. Now, what is interesting when you say this kind of move him aside, give him a new title. It's kind of interesting. And I wonder if the Bears would consider something like that, like what the White Sox did with Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn, right? Move Kenny Williams up, bring in Rick Hahn to be the new GM. Because there are things that that Ryan Pace has done a very good job of. I got to have credit to my colleague, Adam Hogue, who's also on the Under Center podcast. He brings up the great point that one of the things the Bears tasked Ryan Pace with doing was completely revamping Hallis Hall. And now it's a spectacular center facility. The facilities there are great. And that was something that Ryan Pace did. And you could understand the McCaskey family saying, hey, you did a great job with this, and we're not going to forget about that stuff. You know, he did draft Justin Fields, right? I mean, it's easy to say, oh, well, Justin Fields fell in his lap because the Broncos didn't draft him. The Panthers didn't draft him, this, that, or the other thing. The Lions passed on him. But he also traded up from 20 with the New York Giants. You know, the Giants could have taken him right there. He made the move. He's an aggressive guy, and he gets his guys, and he acts with conviction. And to a certain degree, you know, like that, I believe that's a good quality in a GM. If you are convicted and you believe in your player, go get him. And he's done that. Did not work out with Mitchell Trubisky, obviously. Justin Fields, I think we all agree, in the short time he's played here, looks like the dude. So I see both sides of it. The criticism is fair, but at the same time, he's also done some things to really turn the franchise around. And then I know it was kind of a one-off thing, right? It's tough because that 2018 year now feels like a one-off year. But I will say where the franchise is in 2021 going into 2022 is nowhere near where the franchise was when he took over.
I'll definitely give you that, because the team in 2014, I was ready to stop to have anything to do with the Bears. And you know, I was almost done with them at the end of that year. But yeah, they turned over things, and you know, they brought in a young, you know, vibrant guy for the job, and you definitely got to give him the credit for what he's done organizationally, and you know, maybe that means that he will be a decent VP of football operations. But I think they got to have someone, I think, who is a little bit more on the ball, you know, for, you know, maybe that immediate GM position, dealing with, you know, the roster, and dealing with, you know, getting guys. You know, it's great that you get guys in the 5th round and 6th round, but let's get more guys in the 1st and 2nd round, and you know, let's you know, maybe make some better decisions with the money wise and stuff like that and everything, so that we won't have to give up a guy like, you know, like Kyle Fuller, and just leave ourselves wide open as with the 2nd cornerback position. So,
although Kyle Fuller, that decision to let him go doesn't look like a bad decision to let him walk.
Yeah,
it's the decision to roll with Desmond Trufant and Artie Burns and Kendall Vildor. That's questionable, right? I mean, everybody is skewering him for letting Kyle Fuller walk. Meanwhile, Kyle Fuller and the Broncos also did not work out, and he had his reunion with Vic Fangio. So, I mean, again, it's kind of like that's a perfect microcosm of he deserves the criticism, but also deserves a little praise at the same time. And it's complicated. It's complicated to tease that all apart when you're assessing the guy.
I wish we just stick to the praise, though, Alex. You have to be either or. Let's stick to the praise. But no, it's cool. Well, I definitely appreciate the perspective that you add to it, man, and definitely be glad to have you back on with us anytime, man.
Absolutely. This was a ton of fun. Pleasure joining you guys. Thanks for having me. And absolutely, reach back out. I'd love to come back on.
Yeah, we definitely talk enough, so we could set something up on future Mondays. So, but yeah, again, you mentioned, you know, we mentioned definitely the Under Center podcast from time to time because I got Kenneth on it. But, you know, let people know how they can hear you on that show and you know, read all your good writing and everything else.
Well, you can listen to the Under Center podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We also have our show on YouTube if you'd like to look at my beautiful visage as we talk about Bears Lions. My stories are also all over NBCSportsChicago.com. Kyle does a fantastic job of editing those and getting them ready for our app, the My Teams app. If you don't have the My Teams app, you got to see Kyle's handiwork. It's top notch.
My fingerprints are all on it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Alex Shapiro NBCS. At Alex Shapiro NBCS. That's NBC Sports.
That's right. My man, Alex, man. Been great getting to know you, man. I look forward to doing a lot of great work with you, man. And again, man, really appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks again for having me, fellas. And you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too,
man. Alex Shapiro blessing us with the insight and knowledge right there. And Drew, man, just 7 o'clock here. We're getting past the top of the hour. About 15 minutes, we're going to have my man Dave Evans come on. We're going to do a little bit of headlines, stuff, talk about some other stuff outside of the world of sports. But before we do that, I gotta do some Bulls talk. Got you on here. Like I said, the Bulls are about to tip off with Charlotte, and that means it's the first ever Ball Bowl with the Ball brothers facing off here. Lonzo repping us, and Melo, we'll call LaMelo, repping Charlotte. And it's funny because now I want to shout out. I shouted out one barber that I had earlier, my man Sean. I got to shout out another guy who's cut me up in the past, Razor Red, over there in the Tri-Taylor area. They had the big baller production, man. They had a big a pop-up shop with that he helped put on. My man Razor Red. He cuts a lot of the Bulls players, gives shapes them up and stuff, and he helped set up a pop-up with none other than LeVar Ball himself. And they had it yesterday. I should have went out there, man. I didn't make it out there, but it looked pretty cool. I saw some stuff on social media, so I just wanted to shout out Razor for that. He's, like I say, he's doing a lot of big things with the Bulls and other pro athletes in the city, man. So shout out to him for that. But that's the big storyline for the day, of course. Lonzo and LaMelo and the Bulls and the Hornets. Two teams that have been pleasant surprises starting off with the season. There's only like a half game between them in the standings. Both teams have 13 wins. I think the Charlotte has 9 losses to the Bulls, 8. Let's just go overall with your take on the Bulls as of late. Like I say, since we last talked, they've been a little shaky. Had a couple wins, but a couple of bad losses too. The Houston loss was pretty bad. No matter how you cut it. But the Miami game on Saturday, of course, very competitive, but they didn't come through in the end with that one. The Bulls coming down to earth a little bit more since their immediate start, but still, it's squarely in the middle of things in the East. The East is looking pretty tight overall. But what are your thoughts on the Bulls and how things have played out for them in the past week?
Hey, kind of like how you said, a little bit of coming back to earth, maybe some fatigue. They've had a brutal schedule, not just in terms of the West Coast trip, but just the amount of games that they've had to play without many rest days or getting many practices in between. The Indiana loss, you kind of can excuse that away. Caruso didn't play. They were coming off the emotional high. I think that was the game after New York, if I'm not mistaken, when they beat New York. But the Houston game, man, that's right there with them not finding a way to get one of those two against Philadelphia and that home and home they had with the Sixers. especially now that you see that they've gone and ended up losing that game to Miami. It's like one of those games you're supposed to win. You got to get those games because you don't know how those contests with those bigger teams that are, maybe looked at as being better than you are. You never know how those are going to go, man. So you got to take care of business against those lesser teams.
And the optics are just bad too, because it's like you got a lot of people who probably want to jump and say, "Oh, see, they ain't as good as y'all say they is," or whatever. But when you lose to a team that had Houston lost 15 games in a row going into that game. So when and this NBA, well, they're all pros, and you can't expect a team to lose, that many games in a row without being due. But at the same time, you just don't want to be that team that lets them see the light, as it were, and get a win off you, after all that losing they've done. But like you say, the Bulls have been dealing with some likely fatigue issues. They got Nikola back, Vucevic, but he still seems to be working through some things and getting back. But I like the way they came back on the Friday. The schedule to me was kind of weird too. Just the travel too, like you have actually it was weird. It was weirder when I thought that the Houston game was here, but it actually was in Texas. So they did go. They went south. They went to Texas. Then they went to Orlando, where they had a much better performance on Friday. They let Wendell get off quite a bit, but they played the way that they should have overall in that game. But then you have a back-to-back when you go from Florida and you play another Florida team. Instead of playing Miami, you got to come back to Chicago and play Miami. So that's what was weird to be about the schedule last week. But either way, they had they were able to compete with Miami, but still some things that execution wise, it seemed like there were some issues. Like they were a little bit over dependent on the outside shot against Miami. There was a lot of talk about zone defenses. Maybe you could help me with this. Like, what if you observed it? Like the zone seemed to work well in keeping the Bulls out of the middle of the paint and being able to make plays and penetrate defense in the way that they kind of do at their best. And also, on a lot of their transition buckets as well. They weren't getting off in the way that we would like to see them get off. Like I said, they were settling for a lot of outside shots, and those shots weren't falling. So I think that helped a lot. And they're already not a great defensive, not a great rebounding team on any side. And Miami. They get after you on defense, and they play good team defense and they rebound, and that seems to be the stuff that the Bulls cannot fall behind with a good team like that.
Yeah, they tried. Donovan used Caruso kind of in the middle of that zone, to catch and turn and square up and shoot, or hit, spray out to shooters in the corners. That worked a few times. I think the thing is, like, Caruso and Vucevic are probably the two guys that you want to be in that position where they can catch the ball in the heart of the defense and like I said, either be able to turn and face up and shoot, or drive to the basket, kick out to the shooters. But for whatever reason, we haven't seen that consistent enough. And that's part of the reason why, it's frustrating as an observer of this team, but it also kind of weirdly gives you kind of optimism, or gives you optimism about where this team can go, because these are issues that you feel like can be fixed with the amount of talent that they have on these teams, or on this team. The shot makers between DeRozan and Levine, Vucevic and Kobe White. You got to believe eventually these guys will start to hit shots, especially when I looked it up a couple of days ago. 62.7% of the shots that Vucevic is taking are open shots. So I don't know why they're not going down, why the rhythm has been off. You can blame COVID, but, he had been struggling even before he went out for 7 games. So
Right.
I don't know. It's just
If people aren't respect, like you said, if he's getting that many open shots, people aren't respecting it. So he got to make people pay. You got to start making people pay for that.
absolutely. But see, I think that even if we don't see a kind of a progression to the mean, so to speak, with his shooting, like I think that just the threat. I think he still will keep teams honest, which will still help to space the floor for DeRozan especially and Levine as well. Just based off reputation, even if he continues to struggle a bit, but kind of looking forward, looking ahead. Before this past week, I was kind of in the back of my mind thinking about how if this team continues to play the way that it has been, does the front office look to make a big swing, by the trade deadline a little bit beforehand to kind of take advantage of the Eastern Conference that looks fairly wide open. I mean, I still think at the end of the day, Milwaukee and Brooklyn are probably the two best teams in the league, but Brooklyn doesn't look as scary with Kyrie probably out with the new variant kind of rearing its ugly head and no end in sight to New York lifting those restrictions. Milwaukee's a different beast though. But just
they're getting back to it.
Yeah, man.
They picked up DeMarcus Cousins today, and that was a guy who I looked at as a possible option to upgrade the Bulls, but I heard Mark Spears talk about it on ESPN today, and from what he was reporting, like it seemed like only Western teams and Milwaukee were the only teams that were really looking at him at the moment. He mentioned Denver as a team that was possibly that was looking to work him out, or they might have actually already worked him out. But Milwaukee sort of swooped in there and got him, and they were their team that they, like the Bulls, needed some reserves in their front line because of the injury with Lopez. So they doing what they need to do, but that's on top of like a 7-game winning streak that they're on currently. They're getting, like I say, they get back to the money, as it were.
Right, yeah, and getting Middleton back. They were missing some guys earlier on in the season, so things looked a little bit off from where we all figured they'd be. But getting back to the Bulls, like they're playing well. This last stretch, this last 4 games, notwithstanding. And you want to take advantage.
And look, like they still on pace for a 50-win season, like right at the moment. It's gonna take some bad, extended long stretch of play for them to really fall out of playoff contention. So I think as it is right now, let's see how things go. Like you say, going forward over the next week or two, and they got this game tonight against a Charlotte team who we know can put up some points and do a lot of things. So be interested to see how they bounce back tonight. And they got the Knicks again on Thursday. So maybe for next week we'll be able to grade this week and see. Maybe they picked up a couple of needed wins in the Eastern Conference against sort of like-minded teams.
Oh yeah, for sure. We got Brooklyn coming up at 2 on Saturday, I want to say.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that'll be another nice little test. So yeah, let's see how it goes, man. But I one thing I want to mention though, again, going back to the balls, like pause, but no, it's interesting to me because a report came out on Block Club Chicago. They was quoting LeVar saying that he wants all his sons to play on the Bulls eventually. Of course he'll say that, but it just makes me think about how like a year, like people were talking about Lonzo going to Chicago for a while, and when those talks first emerged, I was like, man, what would it really be like to have one of those kids in Chicago with LeVar? Because he comes with the package, but he's been key for these first few months that we've been involved with Lonzo, and this weekend was the first time that he really came out and made any scene of any sort in Chicago. So I wonder if that's going to become more regular. If we know from what happened in LA that could be a bit of an issue when he starts to feel himself, LeVar that is, and really starts to inject himself in things. But so far it's been working out fine, and I would love to have LaMelo here in Chicago as well. I don't know if they'd have enough balls, again, pause in the United Center for both of them to play on the same team. But it's just interesting. Like, it's just interesting to be observing how this whole thing is gone, and where we've gotten involved with the Ball family, and it's been relatively peaceful so far.
Yeah, one thing I'll say for LaMelo and Lonzo, particularly, and even I guess LiAngelo to a certain extent, they don't. I don't want to say distraction because that's their pops. You know what I'm saying? They ride or die for each other no matter what. But for lack of a better word, they don't get distracted by LeVar's statements or his predictions and just everything that makes LeVar Ball. Which is something to say for that. They don't get caught up in it. They just play their game. They do their thing for the most part. So I think it's just a nice kind of side story to keep following as the season goes on and as those guys' careers go on as well.
Yeah, if he do another pop up, I'm gonna try to make sure I go to it because I got to see if I could get a quote or two from LeVar.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be interesting to see how he makes use of the spotlight here in the shot.
For sure. He definitely will give you a quote.
Yeah, he got quotes for days.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'm gonna let you go though, man. Unless you want to stay around for headlines, I don't know. But I know the game is on.
Yeah, I got to get out of here and try to figure out what I'm eating for dinner too. So.
Okay, I already figured it out myself before I come on. So I tried to figure it out before I come on. So
smart
so
man.
if at least I'll have it ready when I get off. But I feel you though. I feel you. But we definitely want you to and I'm gonna check in, of course, with the game as well after we get off here. But we gotta I'll plug the show right quick. We'll have 2 episodes of Running with WARR, our basketball show with me and Drew are featured on as well. Tuesday we'll be on live, and Wednesday we'll be on live as well with a friend of Drew's who got a credit to putting on to the show, Steve Parham, who coaches basketball at Julian High School. He's going to be on with us on Wednesday. We're going to talk up the prep scene here in Chicago and preview the Chicago Elite Classic, which is a showcase. If y'all don't know, great showcase for high school talent, not only here in the city but across the United States. Is going to have some great teams from the Mater Dei in California, a couple of the big Nevada schools are going to be out there in Gonzaga at the DC. So year after year, they showcase people who you're going to see on the next levels, college and pro. And that's so we're going to be talking about that on Wednesday. On Tuesday is going to be more of a conventional show, just catching up on things in the NBA and stuff. But that's going to be what we're going to be doing later this week. And that's pretty much it. I want to shout out again. We go over the other sports in Chicago too before you go through. Have you seen the new Fire coach? They got a brother coaching the Fire. Yeah. This let me look right quick. Ezra Hendrickson is the new Fire coach.
Okay, yeah, I did. I heard that, but I didn't even. Okay, that's what's up, man.
They got a brother coaching the Fire.
Talking about franchise that need a change. Hopefully, this will be one in the right direction for them because they've been having some down years.
Yeah, it looks like they definitely going. Hopefully, ain't one of those things where the brother gets the job after everything is messed up, has to clean everything up.
Right.
But it's interesting because you got that, and you got the Red Stars going to be there. I guess they're currently looking for a coach too because they have to let go of their coach. So they yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna try to see if I get someone on to talk soccer with us in the near future. So that's the Red Stars just barely came up short in winning a championship. Like I say, the Fire are starting pretty much in the rebuild. So we'll definitely keep up with that as that goes along as well. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna let you go, Drew. Man, thanks for coming back on. Appreciate you, man. And we'll talk soon, man.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, man. You too. Tell Dave I said what's up.
Well, hey, you can tell me yourself. We get on right quick.
Yeah, good. What's up, Drew?
What's up, man?
Tying into LeVar Ball, did anybody see King Richard speaking about overbearing fathers or overbearing, self-promoting fathers?
I haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet.
I haven't checked it out yet. Yeah,
Gotta watch it. Gotta watch it. Will Smith, whether you love or hate him, he did a good job as Venus and Serena's dad.
Okay, I know. Our guy Josh was talking about it too. I think he tweeted out about it, how good it was. Okay, I'm gonna check it out, man.
Yeah, Josh did. Yeah, he did say he liked it. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely award bait for Will. He's looking to get in that Oscar conversation this year. So I ain't mad at him.
It was either him.
And it's a story worth telling.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was either him or what's his name, Mikhail T. Williamson, Bubba Gump. If you hear,
he does favor.
He's from Shreveport, Louisiana, so he has a real distinct accent. It almost sounds like Eddie Murphy on like an SNL skit. When you hear his accent, like
his real talking voice. Or you talking about Bubba Gump?
I'm talking about Richard Williams, like the accent.
Oh,
that Will
you talking about
Smith
Richard?
does.
Yeah, I thought you talking about. I think you talking about Michael T.
No, sorry.
Richard Williams. I've heard Richard Williams speak. Yeah, but
it's really unique.
And Will can't really approximate that as well, but I would imagine there's more to his performance than that. But
he did a good job. I'll give him that. He did a good job.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it sometime this week.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Have a good one, man.
All right, you too,
all right, man.
All right, fellas.
All right, peace.
Yep.
Drew went down to Marion too for the holiday, man. He said his sister, his sister graduated in '95 down in Carbondale, and she's been there the whole time since. I couldn't imagine being down there that long, but I love it. Don't diss. I love SIU, but I couldn't imagine being there for 25 years.
Yeah, it's well, I guess hey, depends on what lifestyle you're looking for. Who
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, some people find all they need in their college towns or other towns that they happen upon. You
want some action, you go to St. Louis.
Right? Yeah, St. Louis, man. I don't know. I'm trying to transition, but yeah, what's going on with you, man?
Oh yeah, it's been just getting back in town from the Bay Area, seeing some family up there.
You up for the whole holiday?
Up until Saturday, yeah. Wednesday through Saturday, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So you say your aunt?
Yeah. I got a chance to see my aunt, got a chance to see my grandmother. So that was nice for at least one day. And got a chance to see SF, the other day. And it's a strange place. That's all I can say. It's where gentrification and poverty and hood stuff all kind of intersect. is what the Bay Area is. So it's
The Yay area.
It's nothing. It's no other word. I don't know if there's any other place that really exists like the Bay Area. Maybe like Harlem or something like that could be like compared to like maybe like Oakland. Like you could maybe just like make comparisons there, where you have like gentrification in the old neighborhood kind of meeting each other. But I don't know anywhere else.
Well, I've just been, if we talk about city subcultures, I've been digging into New York more because of Side Talk NYC. I'm trying to put you onto it.
Yeah, that one episode was wild. That's all. New York is a real. I mean, it's really like I said, it's really interesting because you have. Yeah, I mean, you had the borough. I mean, it's very urbane, but at the same time, you have the people who are in the boroughs, and a lot of things haven't changed. I mean, in some instances, I mean, it's one. I read an article some years back about how sometimes when a lot of college professors and academics, from the New York area go out of town, they weren't being taken seriously just because the accent is a very distinct thing. It's a very distinct accent. It's a very hard. It's very
like the Brooklyn accent or Bronx. Yeah,
all of it. They're really distinct accents, and it can be a bit of a running joke depending on where you're at.
It seems like it's a place that is very prominent. I think in all of our imaginations, no matter our connection to it or how often we may have been there. I've still never been to New York myself, but I feel like I know a lot about it through just intaking of culture and things like that. And something like for those who don't know, Side Talk NYC, I think started out as a TikTok account, and it's spread out because there's a bunch of videos of just segments of wild New York people yelling, and is edited in a very specific way where there's a lot of close-ups and there's a lot of quick cuts, and all the videos are under a minute or around a minute. So it's easily digestible, and it's just quick, and it comes at you really quick and insane in a lot of ways, for lack of a better term. But I wanted to play an excerpt because they actually bunched up a bunch of their more popular videos and made like a 20-minute edit of them. But so I guess because of the way that people are getting put onto. Well, I'll tell you too how I sort of got put onto them. I think a lot of people got put onto the videos because they had a video that they put out right after the Knicks home opener, and there was a game where the Knicks won like in double overtime over Boston. So it was a very joyous event for Knicks fans because they won, of course, and they beat Boston, which is like the most favorite thing for any New York sports team to do, is beat Boston at anything. But they got a bunch of fools coming out of Madison Square Garden just yelling and screaming and talking all type of shit about Boston. But it was the funniest thing, and it just caused me, I think, and a lot of other people to just get into those videos and everything. And let me just. I didn't think I was this far down with it. Okay, here we go. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the videos explicit?
I mean, it's just a bunch of wild shit. It reminds me of what you, at least through film, what you saw like old New York or like pre-gentrified New York. And I mean, that's probably what Staten Island is. Staten Island is one of the boroughs that hasn't been.
I think you mean Coney Island.
Coney Island, sorry, tripping. Coney.
Yeah.
Correction.
But
Coney.
Staten probably a lot of like that
Staten too is ungentrified. It's no yuppies. I mean, it's where the all the blue collar workers live.
Yeah.
Oh,
And this is the Knicks video.
Yeah.
I gotta mute this. Tom Brady ain't even in Boston anymore. They talk.
Boston.
What the?
Trey Young was so good. He still ain't good at Dyke, man. You're smoking on that Boston.
What?
Trey Young, Atlanta Hawk star who beat the Knicks in the playoffs last year. And this is the Coney Island crew.
Yes, sir.
I was feeling thirsty. Your mom gave me a gallon of Henny to quench that, you heard?
It's no snow on the floor. He's really skiing the Coney on a hard top. What we doing, Coney Island? Collect real. No, we keep it real. Fuck your life. He had too many shots. Want a shot?
Hey, yo, Ariana Grande, what's up, mama? Come to Coney Island, take a spin on the cyclone. I miss you.
Let's see that flip, boy. Yeah. With the yellow foams on.
I have 7 female wives. Go to my Instagram.
What do you want to tell Joe Given right now?
Joe Byron.
Shut up, baby.
Not Biden, Byron.
Hey, yo. This is the Kim and Kanye of Coney Island.
And Kim ain't got shit on me.
Yo, he got his phone in his balls. Steve Jobs did not die for this.
If you see these dogs in your front yard, just know upstairs I'm going hard. Bing bong.
Come on, nigga. So we could have signed last year.
I remember that. Yeah. I forgot that was
What is your
side.
message to Cuomo right now?
Rot in hell, you son of a bitch.
Cuomo, you put pineapple on your pizza and you get no pussy.
You're next, de Blasio. You're fucking next. You're next. We on your ass, boy. We on your ass, boy.
If she say no, you gotta go. The Italians don't claim that kid Cuomo. We don't fuck with him. We don't fuck with that kid Cuomo. Get the fuck out. We got Trump in the fucking silky on your square. Cuomo, don't you get away with this shit. When I see you, I'm gonna grab you by your fucking neck. We're replacing Cuomo with Bobby Shmurda.
That was actually awesome.
Bobby for governor.
People talk shit. People talk shit about Flint in the water. I want to know what's in the water.
I'm saying, man, it's like if you grow up there and you drink the water all your life, it's either turned
It
into
must
some sort of
like
mutant
if they
by the time you get you get to full adult age. It's like
you just
but
might
it
as
seems
well
like everybody
eat a pencil.
right, yeah. It seems like everybody in New York is either ready to perform. If they're not already a performer, all you gotta do is put a mic in their face and a camera, and they're ready to perform. It's like they just everybody is turned up to a certain degree there, and I know a few New Yorkers like, and even when I think about the New Yorkers I know, it's not like someone like a Brandon Robinson. He's not like those people, of course, in that video, but he is very he's very gregarious as well in his own way, and he knows how to perform, and he knows how to be on. I would say in the way that like a comedian would say that they're being on, But those people are just being on to an extent where it's sort of like wow, like I told you on that text, like I don't like get intimidated easy, but I just. I don't. If you drop me off in Coney Island, I'll be like, man, get me the hell up out of here, man.
You gonna put your hoodie on and you gonna keep walking.
Yeah. If that Byron dude come up on me,
it's still like the Savage. It's like the Savage Skulls and the Savage Nomads in 2021.
Yeah, it's like Coney Island gotta be like the boss level of New York, like the Warriors, like. If you got to fight through the whole city and get to Coney Island at the end, and then you defeated New York.
Yeah,
if you can survive it.
Yeah, because the Bronx is gentrified now. They got parts of the Bronx that's like they're trying to gentrify. So yeah, Coney Island is probably the last bastion for wild shit.
Just untapped New York.
But if you want to talk about I don't know. I haven't been. I haven't been to Coney Island. The only place I've been is Harlem and Manhattan. I think I stepped foot in Brooklyn. To go to a pizza spot once, but the scariest place I've been probably hasn't been in New York. It's been here in LA. Like it's in like Skid Row in LA is probably the scariest place I've been. Like I don't know. We get kosher.
There's like an impossible number of homeless in Skid Row in LA.
But but you know, of course, this winter, so the sun's going down early, and it's like night of living base heads. I mean, they ain't all crackheads, of course, but it's just really scary if you in Skid Row, and after like 5 o'clock. It's like just people walking out in the middle of the street. It's, you know, homeless encampments. I mean, a lot of the hotels.
How close is it to? Yeah, I was saying, how close is it to?
So are you saying how close is it to me, or what are you saying?
No, how close is it to? Like anything that's popping, anything that like people are going to, or anything in there.
So it's kind of in an industrial. It's kind of like in an industrial, adjacent to an industrial area. Like it's a lot of hotels that are focused just for like homeless people. But I don't know if you know, but like that's a lot. But it's a lot of places like that in LA, and people don't tell you about it. Like I hate Hollywood for that very reason. Nobody shows what something really looks like. It's like ironically, I don't know. I think there's a correlation between how expensive the area is and what's the percentage of homeless people live there. Because like the Bay Area is expensive as fuck, and there are plenty of homeless people. The whole East Bay, South Bay, West, it's just everywhere. And so I think there's a correlation between that and also how dirty the area is, how expensive it is. Because like Chicago is it's probably the cleanest major metro city. And that's the whole thing. It's cold. Like when I was home 2 weeks ago, it's cold as fuck, but it's also clean. Like you walk around like, damn, how clean is it here? Just very so. I was reading what the Block Club article about like Chicago having the most 311 calls for rats, and out of nationwide. And somebody said, I've been in New York. They probably don't even call 311 for rats because they just used to dealing with them. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, I saw like video of like, you know, because they had those garbage piles in New York and stuff, and like I saw someone like hit one of them, and like a sea of freaking rats came out. Like that stuff looked insane. Like I don't understand how Chicago got more rats than New York.
People probably just call 311 more. I mean, I think that's really. I think that's a valid point. I mean, they just call 311 more. Because I mean, ultimately, it probably with COVID, what's happening? I know what's happening at home with a lot of the city workers. A lot of them either, you know, didn't go back to work, had injuries, didn't want to get vaccinated, so they didn't want to go back to work. So I got family that work for the city, and they're like, I'm doing as much overtime as I've ever done because we just got a manpower shortage. So I'm pretty sure that same thing's happening in New York. You know, and they just like saying, fuck it, this is, you know, we used to dealing with this because there's no alleys.
Right.
And like here we have alleys, but I don't know. Southern California is one of those places California is just, it's one of those places where the homeless people, like, it's kind of like teachers. Like you say, like, yeah, they important, you know, on TV because that's what get votes. But, you know, in private circles, you'd be like, fuck them niggas.
Yeah.
I think that unfortunately, I think that's what happens here. Just because, I mean, yeah, it's insane. I mean, a lot of people argue, well, Southern California California in general has more homeless people because weather's better. I'm like, yeah, that's part of the argument, but you got a lot of people that just can't afford the cost of living. You know, you got a lot of working poor here. It's kind of like dystopian future, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And where, like you say, working poor, what people who can't afford to go anywhere else, even though it's too expensive to live there, they can't go anywhere else. It's like,
well, they ain't gonna go. Well, I mean, it's the issue at hand is, you know, you can move back. I mean, you can move back east and freeze to death during the winter. You know, where the
Yeah.
resources may be better, because I don't know. It seems one thing Chicago seems to have better handle of is, you know, maybe just resources. I think, you know, for homeless people, or for whatever reason, we don't seem to have it. Or maybe it's just a housing inventory, like shortage. Like you can, like, it's, you know, my day job is, you know, calling apartment building owners, and most of them, you know, they're full. They got wait lists, so they don't really, like, they don't have to worry about taking housing subsidy programs. They don't have to worry. They don't take Section 8. A lot of them don't want to take Section 8. Even though the program is real good. I mean, you know, here it's better, probably better here than it is in Chicago. Just because they have such a back and high demand for housing, so they don't need to. So I'm sure that if, you know, people who can afford to pay rent can't, you know, are having to wait for places or go further out for places, and the people who can't, the most, you know, they really SOL. But I know this will, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, it's rough, man. It's you really wish that more of a, you know, more of an effort was done to because it seemed like, you know, like with like I said, with the housing inventory, that is a lot of places are available in a general sense. Like, you know, maybe a lot of places you still have to fix up, or you have to make accommodable in a way, but
not here.
But
Not
man,
yeah. In Chicago, sure, but not
yeah,
here.
it's Chicago. I think in most places, yeah, probably, yeah. Actually, you can speak to LA, but I think in Chicago it's that way, and a lot of places that way. But, you know, the effort is, but regardless of that, the effort isn't there to really take care of people. It's like, for, you know, it's just not a priority for most governments at any level. It's like, you just got to fend for yourself, and you know, most people who are in those positions are looked down upon. You know, it's rough, man. You know, I just wish that, like I said, we thought more of, you know, providing more for more people, but that's too much like communism, according to most Americans.
I think it's too much like, I don't know if it's too much like people. I think it's too much for like men. I mean, this is a different conversation, but I think that part of the issue is that a lot of our leadership is still male, and still, you know, and men really.
I see what you said. That's
we
some
don't give a
crackpot
fuck.
women out there too,
I
especially
mean,
on
yeah,
the
you
right.
got to. Oh yeah. No, let me correct. But like the company, like the biggest, one of the biggest like charitable housing groups here is called Skid Row Trust. Is run by a woman. Like a lot of the affordable housing organizations, you know, not for profit ones are run by women, and you just
Okay,
like
yeah, I feel
see
you.
that trend where it's like they care. I mean, like, you know, they care like men. They like, you know, they all about social Darwinism and, like, you know.
I remember seeing too, like on 60 Minutes, there was a feature about like a program that was working well in the Nashville area, and they had a woman on there who was sort of heading that up. Like they was providing, you know, like say basically just providing places for homeless people and providing them with real resources to get on their feet, not just, you know, handouts. It was, you know, allowing them to get jobs and have, but a lot of it starts with simply having a place to stay.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you can't have a place to stay, you can't really do shit else to get yourself right.
This is true. It's hard to be stable without a home base. I mean, that is the true words were never spoken. So yeah, you know, but yes, it's fortunate state of things.
But yeah, I was gonna let you go off, man. If you got anything that come to mind, I definitely wanted to talk about Virgil Abloh before we go
right.
off.
Yeah,
But
no.
I don't know if anything else. First, I want to mention this whole thing because, again, I'm still thinking about side talk. I'm thinking about the Joe Byron guy, but but I want to bring up this thing
Brandon.
about Joe Biden. Yeah,
let's go, Brandon.
This let's go, Brandon thing, and this is wild. This actually makes me feel good because I'm not getting the sort. I'm not in the circle, or I don't have people in my circle, nor am I getting the type of content online that would allow me to be up on this stuff. I just found out about this today, and I found out about it indirectly because I watch wrestling, which is its own failing of mine. But this phrase "Let's go Brandon" actually was mentioned on a wrestling show this past Friday, and I read a post about the announcer on the shows has said, like, because there was a chant in the audience during the show, and the announcer on the show was like, "Are they saying 'Let's go Brandon'?" And then I saw that it's Pat McAfee, for anyone who watches who knows what I'm talking about. But apparently he said that on the show, and people were up, and I read something that said that people up in arms about that, and I'm like, why are people up in arms by him mentioning "Let's go Brandon"? But then I did a Google search, of course, which is what Google's for, and I find this piece on the origins of this phrase, and apparently it stems from another good old sporting event called NASCAR, where this NASCAR driver named Brandon. Let me look this up. Brandon something. I got to open the story. But it started on October 2nd, NASCAR race at the Talladega Super Speedway in Alabama. Brandon Brown. This is the AP. I'm quoting. Brandon Brown, a 28-year-old driver, had won his first Xfinity Series and was being interviewed by NBC sports reporter. The crowd behind him was chanting something at first difficult to make out. The reporter suggested that they were chanting "Let's go Brandon" to cheer the driver, but it became increasingly clear that they were saying "Fuck Joe Biden." So this is to be expected, a NASCAR audience, Talladega Speedway, that's in Alabama. Not a lot of pro Joe Biden people there, and they let themselves be known. And because of this innocuous thing that the broadcaster did, trying to clean up the behavior that he couldn't control, it's become this rallying thing for conservatives, and they made it. They put it on all types of posters and sheets and stuff, and a lot of these goofy Republican politicians Ted Cruz and and the likes of Senator Mitch McConnell has retweeted a photo with the phrase, and they've gravitated it towards it because it's a way for them to say "F Joe Biden" without actually saying it. And this, it's kind of funny to me because we went from the Obama administration, and I maintained at the time definitely that Obama was the most disrespected president while in office that there's ever been. But Trump may have surpassed that, but he actually deserved the disrespect that he got, I would say. Some people
ridicule. Well, I mean, I think it was more ridicule. Yeah, it seemed like.
But he was definitely ridiculed. But I'm saying, like, we did, people did out and out, just like say, gave him disrespect, but he mostly deserved it. Right. And whereas Obama didn't really deserve any of the treatment that he got from people who opposed him, and that's sort of the differing edges of the sword, as it were. But the good thing about this AP post that I'm citing, reading from, is that it gives you some history of ways that presidents have been disrespected throughout history. And it's kind of it's kind of funny.
I didn't go through all of it. Yeah,
look at it. It's if you could say you could look at it online. It says the title is the headline is "How Let's Go Brandon Became Code for Insulting Joe Biden." It's on AP. But this is probably the coolest part about this story is the history it gives, and it shows that how little we've come as a society, how little we've evolved as a society in regards to the way we relate to politicians. Because like it cites Grover Cleveland in the 1880s faced chants of "Ma, where's my pa?" because of rumors that he had fathered an illegitimate child. So he'd go out in public and people would basically tease him for being a deadbeat daddy that they thought being a deadbeat daddy. And Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson were the subject of poems that lead into racist tropes and allegations of bigamy. So I'm sure Jefferson got a lot of stuff about how he was carrying on with Sally Hemings. So if it was today, it'd be a lot more. I wonder how the stuff would have been handled if the media was a bit different, more advanced. But they had to deal with poems back then, libelous poems.
Yeah.
And but it's there's always been these sorts of things that have happened, and the story also, really the turning point I think was Trump and the way that he sort of debased public, the way that we talked about presidents, the way that presidents talk to us in public, because no president before him really talked to the public or the media the way that he did. He cursed freely at times in a way that no president has. And some people may be like, well, it's just words and stuff, but I think it makes a difference in the way that if you're going to be the leader of our country and our society,
act presidential.
Act presidential, act like that leader, and not act to the lowest common denominator. And it seems like we've reached a place that we can't necessarily go back from. But Biden in a way has stabilized things because of his lack of controversy and his overall, sort of white breadness. So, he doesn't bring with him, if he was the Democratic version of Trump, then maybe he'd be getting straight up F Joe Biden chance. But because Biden is who he is, he can only get the Let's Go Brandon chance. Part of that too is because the Republicans are corny, and but they can't overshoot the disrespect in the way, because if they were out there, I think if they were out there being like F Joe Biden, it wouldn't make any sense because Biden isn't giving them that same energy back.
Well, I think the issue at hand is that people, and I use that term lightly, always try to find clever code words to do, welfare queen. I mean, and not saying it's the same as welfare queen. I just think it's this code, they always try to find
the history of.
Yeah, and I think that's more important than like the slander and the presidents. Is just the interesting ways they try to figure the quote unquote clever ways they try to figure out how to be rude or disrespectful. I mean, and they figured out.
Yeah, but they say doing it on the low though. Yeah,
right, doing it on the low. That's all. Yeah,
control the narrative by doing it.
Right, and I think that's the thing. It's like it's their way of being able to, be disrespectful, but do it in a, I guess under table, way, so covert way. And I think that's the biggest. I think
a more civil way, a civil way.
Well, civil, right? Well, but more civil way. And I think that's just their way of just trying to be clever to do so.
But again, that wasn't afforded in a lot of ways to Obama, because Obama just got the shouts of liar in the Congress, and all you got the Muslim Antichrist signs and all that.
Yeah, no, and the irony of it is the irony of they. I mean, I don't even know, bringing that up always, just because the thing is he's done more. I mean, we all love. I mean, Obama being one of our most articulate presidents and polished presidents, and has definitely done some great things. His campaigns as far as bombing Muslim countries was probably off the charts. It's really funny. It's like it's kind of like being a person. It's
in a lot of ways,
and they was maligned and it was manipulated in a way to say like, oh no, this guy has some, it has some Muslim origin, and I'm like, you backwards motherfucker, backwards people. It's just it's you're subverting the story, and I think that's what Republicans have always been adept in, is being.
And it was a way for them to hide. It was a way for them to the term gaslighter, of course, becomes popular during the Obama presidency because they're giving us overt racism, but they're trying to say it's something else. It's not. It's not. We're not being racist. We're speaking to something else that worries us. But in actuality, it was simply his race.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, they were using patriotism as. I mean, patriotism is always used as a false cover for ugly acts.
Yeah.
I mean, the same way religion is used as a cover for vile acts in a lot of instances. And I think the thing with Republicans is they've tried to become more clever in the way they hide being dirty. And I think really the reason why they had to do it, the reason why they couldn't be as disrespectful to Biden as they could be Obama, even though they may want to, and maybe the vitriol is even in some cases higher because one, their guy lost, is because of January 6th. I mean, after you're involved in something as shameful as January 6th, like what you have to be, I think you have to be a little bit more cautious in the way you move.
That's a good point. That's
a treason. I'm like, that's the most treasonous act in American history since the Civil War, and since the South's attempt to
secede from the
Union in the Civil War, and so you got to watch the way you move. I'm like, you can't be like, I'm pretty sure they'd be trying to come at Biden even harder if that wasn't the case. If January 6th didn't exist,
because it raised the stakes. Because it's not just after January 6th, we're not just talking about political theater. We're talking literally about the future of democracy and the potential overtaking of the government. It's a reality. I think before January 6th, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, that can't happen." It's it's enough protecting us, enough protecting the Capitol. But we saw just how out in the open the Capitol could be to these knuckleheads and these crazy folk if they wanted to organize and put something together that overthrows our way of life as we come to understand it.
Yeah, agree. And I think that's the reason why, if anything, the Republicans are being a little bit more, trying to be a little bit more covert or clever with the way that they show that they rebel.
That's a good point, Dad. I
don't think they're doing it just so they can be prim and proper, or just not outright disrespectful.
But my point was more so that they didn't give it to Biden because Biden doesn't fuel them enough in certain ways, and I still think of that, but I think your point probably is more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Trump is poisoning people. Trump and his acolytes have framed the Democratic Party or parts of the Democratic Party as this child molesting cabal, Hollywood elites. Trump did they tried to tie Biden's son, to every, to having just improper business deals, and then also Biden being,
they're gonna let China in the back door and
they try
take over the country.
They try all types of wild stuff, but ultimately, when January 6th happened, the Bucks kind of stopped there. I think they had to kind of reset, because ultimately their main player had went off the reservation.
Yeah,
and the guys that went with him, to put it in perspective for you, if they were the Nation of Islam, if the Republican Party was the Nation of Islam, the Trump supporters would be the New Jersey Mosque. I mean, that would be the ones that killed the mosque that essentially defied Elijah Muhammad and went through with the hit of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, I know that's a rant. I know that's a wild analogy, but
that's it. I mean, it's kind of timely too, given the because that's something I was kind of wavering on bringing up, but with the gentleman who been let off.
One of them posthumously, and the one that he's still alive at 83.
Exonerated from the charges of killing Malcolm. Man.
I mean, I think it's just sad with anything with these men. I mean, like that's like the case with what's going on in Angola right now, where you got these guys who've been on the road, or not on the road, but who've been in jail for 50 plus years because they copped a plea and they were only supposed to get 10 years, and many of them still stuck. And you got dudes that went in at 19 coming out at 74.
Mm. And there's a guy too in Missouri who just got let out after being wrongly in prison for 40 years on a murder charge.
43 years. Yeah. And I mean, you listen and you look at these things, and I'm like, this should tell you that our system is deeply flawed. And a lot of times, like the greatest miscarriage of justice, and it happens, it definitely happens in like Democratic states, but it seems like the guys in Republican states, they're just always trying to double down. They're like, we fucked up 40, 30, 40, 50 years ago, but we're still a law and order state. And they don't. I mean,
right. That's the key. That's the key. You got to be tough on crime. You got to be project that you're a law and order state. That you don't play that mess in your area.
I mean, but I don't. But I think really what's more important is that what a lot of people don't look at is, as David Simon always said, you got to follow the money. You can't dismantle. You can't dismantle prisons because it just takes out too many jobs. And many southern states, many southern cities, that's a big part of the economy.
A lot of it's the only economy. Yeah,
exactly. So you letting all these dudes out of jail, whether they've been wrongfully imprisoned or not, you taking away jobs. You're taking away federal and state funding, and and that determines on who can be hired next year, or who can keep their jobs. And that for them, that's their mindset.
Yeah, it's a rough system. There's a show that's just come out about that called Mayor of Kingstown. I'm thinking about checking out as we talking about streaming stuff. That's I saw this on Paramount Plus, but I think it's actually on the Paramount channel as well. I think the cable channel, but it's got my man Jeremy Renner in it. He's like the head mover and shaker. He's not a literal mayor, but he's like deemed the mayor of this town where that is completely dependent on its prison that's within it and everything. And so that seemed to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, but I think and it'll be interesting to kind of see the dynamics of that. Like, I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge. I think what America has to come to terms with. We talk about reparations for slavery. We talk about reparations for these dudes whose lives you stolen, and then we can get to slavery.
Happens. It happens. It keeps on happening. Yeah.
I mean, we have to resolve the wrongs of the recent past, or we can get back to slavery, to the not the far past, but the further along past. Yeah, I think that's really important. But yeah,
let's wrap it up though, man. Except before we go, I
Virgil
definitely want to talk about Virgil Abloh and first, just RIP to him and acknowledge his passing. I learned last night that he has suffered. The cancer he suffered from was like a rare kind of cancer to do with the heart, and he passes at the age of 41. He's just born in 1980, so he's a very much Dave left. Hope he left the session for some reason. I hope he could get back on. But so let me just continue. Very much a Virgil Abloh, of course, very much a person of our generation, a person who made a lot of impact in culture and fashion. Okay, here we go. Get Dave back on.
Yeah, knocked off.
I say, yeah. But I was just saying, Virgil Abloh, very much a person of our generation, a person who, in a short time made a great impact on culture and fashion and design, and it becomes one of those stories now where, you sort of see in retrospect why this guy moved the way that he moved and did the things that he did, took the risks that he took, because he kind of knew at a certain point. I think it was about 2 years ago he got this diagnosis that he wasn't going to be around for much longer, and he wasn't going to live a long life. And he utilized his time where he was here to a great degree to influence a lot of people. So many people have come out on social media in the past day or so, and of just whether they people who didn't know him at all, but a lot of people who did know him, especially here in Chicago. He was originally from Rockford, and his home base made Chicago his home base, and he, of course, a lot of people know him from his connection and relationship with Kanye West, but he was really connected to a lot of people here in Chicago, designers and movers and shakers, and really was sort of at the head of this class of creators and doers, young people of our age and thereabouts here in Chicago, who are really making changes in our city and throughout the world. So he gets a lot of respect from me just for that. I know while he was here, me and you, because you probably the person I primarily talked about him with, and I know from time to time we would sort of make fun of some of the things he did on the fashion. Not that me and you are fashion experts of any kind, but he, like I said, he did take some risks with certain things that he did. But when you think of Off-White and the things when Off-White first came out, how much of a game changer it was, and when he first got involved with Nike and the sort of deconstruction that he did with their branding and their design, it was really a game changer, and something that really broke out a lot of what street fashion, sort of it wasn't nothing like it in that area of fashion, and it made him into a star and a guy who just blew up, to become the head of what was I forget the
LVMH, Louis Vuitton.
Some brands. Louis Vuitton. I was thinking of the exact title, but Louis Vuitton and all that. Brother Larry Legend on Twitter made mention, sort of plainly, like, to go from Rockford to that, like, it's something that we're never going to see again.
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. I think if anything, I mean, he's second generation Ghanaian immigrant, and the irony of him being a creative designer as a Ghanaian immigrant to, for a French brand, and the French have a history of being racist towards Africans, African immigrants in general. I just think that irony has to tickle his parents. I'm sure if they because traditionally, the French treat the North Africans, the most Arab, Africans, they treat them like shit. So the irony,
completely, they were the biggest colonizers of that area.
Well, I mean, just in France in general. I mean, the ones that live in France, they treat them like shit. I mean,
but I say that stems from the relationship of them colonizing the continent.
Oh, most
and
definitely.
those people, those people came, like I say, they go into France and seek better lives, and they, like you say, they be treated like they were treated. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just pretty sure like maybe he may have not understood like the irony of it, but I'm pretty sure his parents understood like the irony of it. Like, to be able to come from, to your point, like Rockford, and then to ultimately have your own brand and ultimately have creative, director for Louis Vuitton, and for them to, invest in a, significant ownership stake in it. And to your point, like his cultural significance for, just for what he's, brought to Nike, being able to have these deconstructed shoes and to have them essentially, multiplying value as soon as they're sold. I think that really speaks something. I'm like, from a aesthetic standpoint, it was definitely not my choice. But I do finally understand why he worked like he did, and also understand, why he worked at the pace that he did, and why he was probably a little bit more fearless in putting out designs and putting out concepts, knowing that he was working with a limited clock.
Exactly.
Because you don't always know that.
Yeah. But right. I'll just say, like, it ties him into, because there was a image that a lot of people were posting up of him with Chadwick Boseman, and and Boseman's birthday. It's either today or yesterday. What was his 45th birthday? So that's really a parallel situation there, where Chadwick, again, he was diagnosed with his terminal illness, and he knew he didn't have much time to go as well, and he put into his last years on earth a lot of work, and did a lot of big things, including the Black Panther and the Marvel stuff, but also stuff like the Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and these significant works that are gonna live on for a long time. And it's amazing just to be in that position. I just can't imagine, what it is, how I would feel to have to stare down death and try to make the most of knowing of any bit of short term, whatever it is, a year,
You're right.
6 months, 2 years. I mean, whatever it is, like, just to know that finish line is right ahead of you. It's amazing the wherewithal that those guys showed.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And the willingness to think for the future and think for so many others as beyond themselves.
well, yeah, and I think more than anything, it seems like once they, to be to utilize, to maximize the time you have left.
Yeah.
I think that's yeah.
Yeah, I put my man Jay Dilla in that category too. He was in a similar position when
him Keith Haring. I mean, Keith Haring, I'm pretty sure, like, and once they knew their time was limited, they just doubled down and put the work in. It's really it made me have a I don't know, what is it, kind of be cognizant of what to be grateful for. Like I saw that message on IG, and sometimes we kind of get limited on what we don't have, or focused on what we don't have versus what we do have. And I think, once I saw that message or that post on IG, it made me pause and really reflect on what I do have. And I think that's something that's, if anything, his passing should do is, one, let you know that time isn't promised, and two, reflect on what you do have. Because a lot of the things that we, tend to do is that, and then also to know that when people are, people's artistic, whether you agree with their artistic vision or not, they're creating, right? I mean, they're creating something that without art, there'd be nothing to critique. And I think that's something that we have to be cognizant of. Whether you agree with it or not, I mean, I'm like, you can look at, I would have never, I mean, outside of his clothing work with Louis Vuitton, and without his, like the shirts for Off-Brand, Off-White, I don't think what he's done with Nike. I don't think anybody else would have probably envisioned, going to re-releasing of Nike Jordans, Jordans and his classic shoes, and putting that approach on it. So if nothing else, I can look back and say, hey, you know what? He made us, look at how you can, design a shoe in a very different way than we would have ever thought. And I'm pretty sure that, and there are people like Kanye who've tried to like push the envelope on the way we conceptualize sneakers. But I think he really changed the paradigm in a way that no other shoe designer has. And so for him, that hats off for that. Hats off for everything he's done.
Right. Whether you actually wear the stuff or not.
Well, I don't wear. I would like his shoe. If it was in my wherewithal, I wouldn't necessarily. It's not a shoe that I would necessarily make the investment in buying. But at the same time, I'm happy that it exists because it's like that's a different take on a shoe that you have never seen anybody else, probably put out, at least in mass production.
Yeah. And expanding out to sort of the more multimedia things that he did in regards to, some, he dabbled in some video and some, imagery and various images. He did quite a few album covers and stuff for people as well. He maintained a real connection. And part of it, is you get to a certain point, you can hobnob and do things with people, but he made, he kept it hip hop in a lot of ways with regards to his connections, and he kept a certain level of trueness to, like say, hip hop culture and Chicago, and that those big coats with the Chicago skyline that he put out in Paris, like this again is something that I wouldn't necessarily wear, but you can imagine where he was inspired, how he was inspired, and what he was inspired by, and what he was trying to get across by doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'll say so. I think operating in a space, there's a certain you can't operating in New York Fashion Week and in Paris and Milan also, you can't create, unfortunately or unfortunately, you have to create clothes that push the envelope. And so you're not going to create anything that's, I won't consider, functional everyday wear or popular design. You're going to wear something that pushes the envelope. It's kind of like you don't go to a Michelin star restaurant expecting to get a regular hamburger. You get a hamburger with some weird stuff on it. Yeah, it's gonna be foie gras, or it's gonna be something different. You get a hamburger, it's something.
Yeah, a certain level of execution has to be.
It's gonna be some panache, some flair that wouldn't exist in a traditional environment. You don't go to those places, you don't go to work in those environments without the intent of being different. And I think that's what really was his, and that's so. Yeah, I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to understand his I'm not the person who's going to understand his artistic vision. I can, regardless of it, I respect where you can respect what somebody's been able to achieve, whether you can understand it or not. Because you do understand the cultural significance of it. You do understand that traditionally fashion houses are inherently exclusive, and traditionally Black and brown people don't make it past being models at best.
Yeah. And everything about them is Eurocentric.
Super skinny, gender neutral looking, even if they are women. Traditionally most Black models you see in high fashion are from African countries. There are not a lot of, that's primarily just kind of the way it is. Europe has a fetish with Black skin. So you're not gonna, so to have a guy from Chicago come and be a part of that conversation is definitely, it's definitely meaningful. I really wonder, it's, especially with the movie, it was The House of Gucci that just came out. it really, I'm wondering if those guys, and I'm pretty sure most of them are dead or advanced to age right now. I wonder if they would have, if they could have been, if they were alive, if they would have, what they would have thought seeing black faces in control or having more creative control, and what fashion in Paris and Milan looked like. Because of course, back then and up until recently, it was unthinkable.
Definitely.
So so for nothing else, the man was a trailblazer, and he's a trailblazer in a short period of time, multi-talented. He left a family, which being able to kind of work and to be able to put that amount of content out and have a family too, is definitely a skill in itself. I think it's really, not to knock anybody who's single, but when you have a family and you have a young family, to be able to produce content, and it becomes a lot harder. So I think that's really impressive. But condolences to his family, and hopefully he's, shine a light or open some doors to some other, people in, black people in the fashion space or aspiring to be in the fashion space. And hopefully it'll hopefully open some barriers for some people who are not connected, because the other part of it is he was connected. He was connected.
He worked to get himself connected too.
Right.
I think he definitely influenced many people who are gonna, in their own way, change or help progress those areas of fashion and design going forward that he touched on. So
I just hope I just hope his presence opens doors, because and the only reason I mention that is because I think that what ends up happening, in these spaces that are traditionally just accessible to a certain type of person, they're always outliers. There's always these people who've been able to overcome obstacles and or just been really unique, and then that's all you have of being in my space. I don't see a lot of people that look like me, and probably unless in the fashion space, probably I know already exists. So hopefully he opens some doors. So hopefully his passing or his presence, will open some doors to some people who are not connected, to be able to, who have a drive and who have a vision and think they can compete and, compete in those spaces, to open some doors for them. Because I think that's what's really important. I think the shame would be he passed and then no one else that looks like Virgil, whether it's a woman, or whether it's another minority, is able to come in that space, because that would be the true shame of his death. And that's up to the Louis Vuittons and the other the Italian fashion houses to be able to continue that, just to be more inclusive. So
definitely. We definitely hope for the better, hope for the best in that regard. But like I say, shout out to definitely rest in peace and condolences to Virgil Abloh, and like I say, all his family and all those who are affected by his life and his legacy. Definitely a lot of people have shown to be in that group, over the past day or so. But we gonna wrap up on that regard. Dave, man, appreciate you chopping it up with me again this week.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll probably do this again. Do it again probably one more time on a Monday before the end of the year. But we got our in the building show. We did had a return about 2 weeks ago. And this week we look to have another show on this Thursday. Actually, going to announce our guests this week. Is expected to be the group Abstract Mind State. If you don't know about Chicago hip hop, they're pretty significant group in the independent scene from Chicago, and they put out an album this year. We talked about Virgil and Kanye a little earlier, and Kanye West actually produced the last album that Abstract Mind State put out earlier this year. Pretty great album actually, and made some noise sort of in the late summer. It actually came out around the time that Donda did, which was unfortunate because it sort of sucked up a lot of the oxygen that the Abstract Mind State album had. But I definitely recommend you listen to that album because it has Kanye West in a definitely a retro mind state, the more along the lines, like I said, he produced the whole album, all the beats on the album he did, and it got some attention for that alone, some overall media attention for that alone when it came out, but more of the attention went towards his own antics and his release of Donda right after that. But the album is great, and these two interesting artists in that group. They got a great story of their own of how they, sort of came up in hip hop. Then they, sort of stopped working for a while as artists, and then sort of got back together and made this reunion project. And they got, of course, Kanye to back it and release it under his Yeezy Sound label. And one of the better stories in music all year, I would say. And we got, like I said, we'll have them on the show this Thursday. We'll be talking to them ahead of a show that they're going to be doing at the Promontory, actually opening up for Slum Village, the great group out of Detroit. And we definitely look forward to that. That's going to be this Thursday. I'm not sure the exact time yet, but definitely follow WARR Media and everything on YouTube, and you'll get an advance notice of the when we go live on Thursday. We'll have that, like I said, we'll add that information for you on YouTube as well as Twitter and all that. We'll have the information available on our social media platforms. But that is this Thursday. Going back to In the Building, me and Dave interview, exclusive interviews on In the Building, and all here on Monday Night Means. We'll get together every now and then, and I say just talk things over, talk over the latest in headlines and stuff like that. So that's my man Dave. You can definitely catch him out and about in LA, if not on these online streets. He's out there in LA doing his thing. And me, I'm on Twitter under Means Matters, and IG under K Mean, and definitely WARR Media. Anything you see WARR Media, I'm behind that. So you can reach out through that way as well, at WARR Media on Twitter, IG or Insta or Facebook. And anything else you want to say, Dave, before we wrap up?
No, we'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah. Should be a good one, man. We're gonna have fun on this upcoming show Thursday. So definitely Abstract Mind State on In the Building with me and Dave. Check it out live if you want to build with this cool Chicago group, and ask them any questions about Kanye. We'll definitely have our own questions about Kanye and the process that they had in making this album. But if you got your own questions, get on live with us and ask them yourself. But if not, if you can't get on live, check us out whenever on YouTube, and on Anchor.fm as well on our podcast, where you could also listen to this. So that's it for now, though. Enjoy your Monday, the rest of your Monday as it's playing out, and enjoy the rest of y'all week. And again, get up with us on Thursday. All right.
All right.
Talk to you later.